So I read some books. Okay, hi guys again. How are you going? How is your life? I'm Grace, this is Gracefully, and today we're going to be doing my winter wrap-up. The reason why it's a winter wrap-up is because I'm in Australia, okay? And we don't really have seasons. We have rainy and not rainy, and winter is between June, July, and August. So, that is why it is a winter wrap-up. I've read 8 books in winter. Probably like averaging about 2 books a month, like just 2 to 3 books a month, which is pretty impressive for me considering as a child I used to read 100 books a year, like flawlessly, and then I got to uni and I went, oh shit, I do not have the time to read anymore, but I'm obviously making more time to read, and this channel is like motivated me 10,000%. Anyway, first book I read, which was like the 5th reread for me of this book, was Memories by Leigh. This is a poetry book, essentially centralizing on the theme of memories and also like love and patience. And I know that a lot of people love Leav, and I used to a lot. I used to completely adore her. But I find every single time I read her again that my rating goes down by like another star, unfortunately. I just feel like the poetry that I used to relate to is now just so derivative and too broad. I think it's a good type of love poem to aspire to, I guess. Yeah, I've read like actual books that are written more beautifully and make a better comment on these kind of relationships than Leigh did in this book, unfortunately. So I did rate this one a 2 out of 5 stars. I think if you're just entering into poetry and you kind of want a starting point, totally pick this one up. It's still probably like it has definitely a place in my heart, and this edition is stunning. Except I've owned it for many years, so it has been a bit battered. So yeah, if you're starting in poetry, absolutely pick this up, but just not for me anymore, I don't think. Next up, I read my absolute favorite book of all time. I don't know if for those of you who have watched my previous video, you may know what this book is, or at least who it's by, but that is Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. I reread this book in eagerness to read Mr. Impossible, which is the sequel. For those of you who don't know, there is indeed a sequel series to The Raven Boys, which is called The Dream Thieves. And this is the Dreamer Trilogy, sorry. So it is a sequel series to Raven Boys, following the character of Ronan and kind of his, for those of you who have read the series, you know that he has a special kind of magic, and it explores how this magic functions within the world. So I think this book makes a lot of commentary on the real world. Like it's totally an urban fantasy or magical realism, whatever you kind of want to classify it as. It makes real life commentary on the choices that you make in life and kind of the steps that you have to take, and whether you follow your heart and your dreams or whether following it will inevitably lead to your doom. Yeah, and also it has a lot of commentary on environmentalism. Maggie Stiefvater posted some pictures on her Instagram about this kind of dead zone, I think it's called, or silent zone, where there's only one radio plate. And I think that picture perfectly encapsulates this book and also its sequel, which happened to be the next book I read. I read Mr. Impossible by Maggie Stiefvater. Oh, also this one, 110%, 5 out of 5 stars, no questions asked. Then this one is Mr. Impossible, and it is the sequel, and to be honest, I found it kind of underwhelming. I didn't enjoy it as much as the sequel. I still very much enjoy like Maggie Stiefvater's writing, and this is not me slamming on her. I just expected a lot more from this novel than I got. I think that, like, obviously given the size, it seemed like a filler novel in between kind of the previous book and this one. I honestly can't recall a lot of what happened, and I feel like that'd be perfectly okay to read the next one. I think there was one character storyline which was very good, and then the other ones weren't as good, although there was a romance in here that just like, it just absolutely, I just wanted to hug this romance. It's so good and so perfect, and I think this book, again, it focuses on real life issues. It focuses on individualism, and again, environmentalism seems to be a very large theme that Maggie is, we're on a first name basis actually. that Maggie is trying to explore. I think I gave this about a 3 to 4 stars, probably like a 3.5. Like, I loved it, and I love Maggie Stiefvater, but it really felt like a filler novel to me, unfortunately. The next books that I read might be kind of controversial, like my opinions. So the first one that I read was Shadow and Bone. That came... first book I read was Shadow and Bone, part of the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo. I'm sure everyone knows about this. I don't need to explain it too deeply, but essentially there are people, and there are people who aren't, born with this Grisha ability. And if you are found to possess it, you are taken away to the capital city where you are trained to kind of harness your power and to enter yourself within the king's armies. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars, and I will give you my reasoning, and I think a lot of people who are now reading the series kind of share the same opinion, is that it's just YA. Like, it's just the epitome of young adult literature is this book. It just has all the tropes. Like, it has the not like other girl going to the kingdom, and then she gets, you know, like dressed up and all that sort of stuff, and then there's like a love interest, and there's the best friend love interest. There's like kind of a love triangle there. I do love the darkling though. He is attractive and beautiful, but also a bit evil, little bit evil. But yeah, it's kind of just like a basic young adult novel. There's nothing much more to say about it. I did enjoy it. I flew through it in like 2 days, which is like the quickest I've read a book in a while. And I think that, like, yeah, that these type of books have a place on TBRs and a place in everyone's hearts, obviously. But I am just reading the series, full disclosure, to read like King of Scars and Six of Crows. And then my next book is Siege and Storm, also part of the Grishaverse, the sequel. And I found this one even more underwhelming than the first one. And the only kind of gratifying aspect of this book was Nikolai. Nikolai, oh, I would die for that man. I'd die for so many book characters. Is that concerning? Probably. Do I need help? Definitely not. I really love Nikolai. His character is so strong. He has like background motivation. I think he is really the saving grace. My name. Saving grace of this novel, 100%. Again, I think so many books are having second book syndrome, because this, again, just felt like a bridging novel, and it felt like a kind of setup for the third novel, which I am borrowing this series off a workmate, so I do not have the third book because we did go into lockdown and I had this book, and she obviously has the third one and I don't have the third one, but I am looking forward to reading it, and then I'm looking forward to diving into Six of Crows, and I think King of Scars is about Nikolai. And look, I ain't complaining. And now the next books that I read were pretty much all for my course. I read 1984 this winter because it is my boyfriend's favourite book, I think. Honey, baby, babe.
Yeah.
Is 1984 your favourite book?
No.
It is not his favourite book. Anyway, I read this book.
Story of a Wimpy Kid will always be the best book.
Thank you, Liam. Anyway, I read 1984. For those of you who don't know what 1984 is, essentially it is about a surveillance state where the protagonist kind of starts to awaken himself to this world. Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's the dystopian that I think very much had a big effect on the dystopians after it. It's interesting to see like the inventions that are in it, like the two-way glass, and now the fact that we like FaceTime. Like, again, I didn't realize these little intricate, like little things that just wouldn't have been invented then. Because I was like, oh, two-way glass, it's like a television screen, except it's FaceTime. But that wasn't a thing in 1984 and 1948 when this was written. I understand the significance of this book. 100%. I understand why it is significant, why it needed to be written. I just think it's really slow. It's a bit too slow for my liking. I think that this could be said in about half the pages that it's set in, and I found that I have an issue with classics that I will tell you as I touch on the other two classics that I read this winter, because I do have a problem with classics I have found, and it's kind of a very similar thread and similar issue. Now, the next book that I read is one that I had to do an assessment on, so I did kind of study this one a little more intricately. And this one was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I did kind of brief my thoughts in my currently reading, but now that I have finished it, I can give you my complete thoughts. And that is that it's probably like a 4-star read, 4 out of 5. I think it's written phenomenally, especially considering that Mary Shelley was 19. I think that the themes it touches on is very valid, and the fact that there isn't any real hero is... the fact that it isn't a real hero does have some commentary on kind of real life. Again, I keep on saying that everything is a commentary on real life, but is that not books? Really. I found the beginning riveting and amazing, and then I found the end riveting and amazing, but the middle just frustrated me, because this bloke who makes a monster or makes a creature from dead body parts essentially just lets it loose on the world and just doesn't do shit about it for like half the book. Like, he has created something that terrifies him, and he doesn't decide to do anything about it until like 20 pages from the end. And that just... I've realised that that is an issue with classics, is that they just have a complete lack of agency. And I think that's maybe, like, obviously the book world has shifted and changed. My problem isn't the fact that there isn't like this epic battle, it's the fact that these people are just standing around doing nothing for a large portion of the book and just letting things happen. Like, if I was this man, I would, one, not bring something back from dead. What? If I was this man, I would not bring something back to life from the dead. Yes. If I was this man, I just wouldn't do that. But if I did, I wouldn't just wait 5 to 6 years until this thing found me, and I was like, hey boo, how you going? I think you're a monster. Get out of my sight. I'd be like, no, we need to destroy this thing now. I've made a mistake. And yeah, just frustrated me a bit. Again, written very well. 4 out of 5 stars. If you wanted to get started on classics, I would suggest this one. I'm sorry I went on such a rant. It is actually written really well, and I think if you know Mary Shelley's past, which I learnt from the introduction of this, you'll love it. But again, this issue with classics and agency is, I think, where classics are letting me down. The last book I read this season, this winter, was H.G. Wells's The War of the Worlds, which essentially chronicles what would happen, essentially, if Martians came to Earth. This one is set in the 1800s, I believe, but it would be very applicable now as well, I have the suspicion. And I gave this one like a 3.75 out of 5 stars because it wasn't quite 4 stars, and I'll tell you why. So there was once again this lack of agency that was occurring in this book, and it wasn't as frustrating because I think it was a very accurate representation of how people react to crisis, especially us having to deal with COVID. There was a lot of lines that I read and I was like, oh my gosh, that is 100% how we are reacting. And I think that is one of the this book is written very well and quite phenomenally. I cannot find a part that I've highlighted presently, but there's definitely lines that just hit a little too hard. Even the opening is just like, yet across the gulf of space, minds that are to our minds as ours are to those of the beasts that perish, intellects sparse and cool and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. Like, the writing is phenomenal. We do get to see 2 perspectives. We get to see the perspective of the main character, whose name escapes my brain because he's not very memorable, and then his brother, who is kind of in the heat of, like, he's in London, he's around all these people, while his brother is not. His brother is in, like, desolate lands. He doesn't see many people. And I think it was really good having, like, that contrast between 2 different perspectives. I think that gave a really rounded look at what would have happened if this occurred. And the other issue I had, and the reason why I knocked it down like a quarter of a star was because the wife is characterized so poorly in this. Like, I feel like H.G. Wells wants us to say like, oh my gosh, this guy, he's fighting to, you know, reconcile himself with his wife, to get back together with his wife, because he's just so dedicated to her. But I really couldn't tell her from a bar of soap. She's a brick. She has no personality. You can tell that H.G. Wells is trying to get you to react emotionally to the fact that they're separated throughout the whole thing. Not a spoiler, it happens in the first like 50 pages. But yeah, you can tell that he's like trying to get you to react to their relationship, and I just didn't care. I didn't care about the relationship because I didn't have any stakes. I didn't have anything to fight for. And that's one of the reasons. And I'm of course, I'm going to acknowledge context, but also I'm living in my context, so I'm going to judge it for that. Anyways, so yeah. These, I'll just like pile them up all nicely. These are the books I read this winter. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm really loving and enjoying this whole journey that I'm taking with y'all. I've been engaging with this community for so long. I'm kind of like lingering on the sidelines. I'm not really one to comment on videos, and I've started commenting on videos. I've started to look at BookTube a lot more and spend a lot more time on it, and already I'm absolutely loving it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe, please like the video. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to pick up these books again. Hey! I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you all again. Please comment down below if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, or if you've read like any, I don't know, just let me know. Let me know what you're reading, what your thoughts on what you're currently reading are. If you've read any of like these books, what your thoughts on these books are. Yeah. Keep reading or don't, your choice. Have a lovely day. Bye.